certainly making the most of what he's got there. Now, as today is World Environment Day, our interview is with John Caveman Gray, also known as Linyai, or Big Monkey, a lifelong environmental activist and the original sea kayak explorer in Thailand who started sea canoe ecotours in Phuket. He advocates phasing out two-cycle or stroke oil engines in speedboats to reduce pollution and carbon dioxide, and shows us some of his interesting videos of monkeys breaking open oysters. And first, a water monitor lizard at Koh Phangan, Phang Nga Bay, as he tells us more about his background and nicknames.
Well, I'm a big monkey because I'm a big monkey. We're all primates, and we're just intelligent because the Earth happened to pass through some space dust about 1 million years ago. So we're very closely related to the other animals. I don't think we give enough importance to animal intelligence.
You've done many, many videos, including an Emmy awarding one, but you've done your own videos here. We've got one in the background. Tell us about this wonderful monitor.
Yeah, that was a banded water monitor. We used to have several of them in Koh Phangan. They were poached a year ago, February, and now we've got a new generation coming back. But because these guys are carrion eaters and the garbage collectors of the sea, when I go around collecting marine rubbish these days, there's a particular stench that wasn't noticeable before the water monitors were poached. So they're very important to the ecosystem.
This was in the same area where there are also many monkeys, yeah? These are unusual monkeys?
Yeah, these are crab-eating macaques. They're very common out there in the bay. These guys are very intelligent. When you paddle up to a family of them, is very obvious that we're all relatives. And the real captivating significance of a monkey sighting is that we're so closely related. And everybody loves to look at the monkeys because they're so human, or either that or humans are so primate, you know, take your pick. But
they were trying to open oysters?
Yeah, sure. They're tool-using animals. They're opening oysters by hitting them on the rocks, and sometimes they'll pick a rock up and actually hit it against the oysters and open them that way. You can actually hear the oysters hitting the rocks in the background there. And they're very intelligent, but they're not stupid enough to destroy the ecosystem and the balance of the planet.
You film these from your own canoe during a tour?
Yeah, sure. I take my camera out and whenever I get the chance. And this was shot during one of our trips. I have to say that one of the biggest problems we've got in South Thailand is monkey feeding. It's really bad for several reasons. One, there's no bananas on these islands at all. People feed them bananas, watermelon. It's not their natural diet. So you're asking for a lot of problems, birth defects, things like this. The second thing is they become dependent upon the food. They forget how to forage on their own. They're really leaf eaters. They eat mangrove leaves, leaves of the trees. And then the third thing is they become habituated to human contact, and then they become aggressive and very dangerous. There have been a lot of monkey attacks here in South Thailand that are brushed over, but it's really, really a bad thing to feed the monkeys.
Now, you started the sea kayaking or sea canoeing business, or the eco-tourism business in Phuket first. When was it? 1980?
1989, yeah.
How do you think it's gone overdeveloped since you started, and should there be limitations now on restricting the numbers and the companies and the boats and the people?
Well, this was actually why I came here, was to introduce environmental planning and professional standards to Asia. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked out too well, and I'm a Westerner. Nobody really wants to listen to that, but we'd be much better off if we had professional standards and some sort of at least environmental training. I know we'll never get volume controls, which would be the perfect ideal thing, but at least the folks going out there should have some environmental training, perhaps from the national park, something like this. But there's a lot of abuse of the park because basically the park just doesn't pay much attention to it. much more interested in collecting their fees than they are about controlling behavior. Yeah.
What about pollution and, say, from engine oil? Is there far too much use of oil in Phang Nga Bay?
Well, not just in Phang Nga Bay. I'd say the big one is Phi Phi Island. We have several hundred speedboats here. Most operators tell me the number's around 500. They're virtually all two-cycle. Two-cycle is very bad. It's been banned in California, the world's 7th largest economy, most European nations now, and it's an extreme polluter. One trip to Phi Phi Island in one day creates as much pollution as 2 Humvees in their entire lifetime. Now this is because of the motor oil that goes into the two-cycle engine mix, and because that motor oil goes through the engine once only and is passed out the back. And the second thing is because two-cycle doesn't have an exhaust stroke, 30% of the petrol mix just goes into the sea without ever even being burned. So you get a couple of twin 240s on the back of an outboard, you're talking some pretty serious stuff. Now the irony to this is it's actually cheaper and more economically viable for the operator to switch to 4-cycle, because they eliminate the purchase of that 2-cycle motor oil, they get a better mileage, and they reduce repairs. So the cost of a 4-cycle engine is maybe 5% more than a 2-cycle, but in about a month they've recouped that cost because of their lower operating costs, and after that they're saving money for the rest of the life of the boat. So it just doesn't make sense not to switch.
What are some of the more positive things that people can do to save the environment here today on World Environment Day? Just locally, what can they do? Is it, say, planting more trees, more mango trees?
Sure, plant a lot more trees, reduce your use of air conditioning. I live in a Thai wooden house that we have fans. You know, it's we have that old traditional Thai lifestyle, very low energy consumption. So, hey, I'm in Thailand. I went back to that old lifestyle. Aircon, really bad. One of the biggest problems is when people go shopping and leave their motor on when they run into the store, because when the motor is at idle is when it's creating, it's not running efficiently, and then it's creating a lot of hydrocarbon pollution.
How worried are you by the global fear now about rising temperatures and melting ice? Melting ice, hot topic, they say, is the theme this year. Do you think that Phuket and Phang Nga and Krabi are all going to be affected by rising sea level?
Well, I wouldn't be buying any real estate that's below 10 meters above sea level if you expect your kids to inherit it, because that's probably a good guess on what the sea level rise is going to be in the next 50 years. In Phang Nga Bay alone, we're very critical about our entrances. We've had to adjust our tide tables upward 2 decimeters. That's 8 inches in 18 years in our cave entries. So the tide table's off 8 inches in the past 18 years. That doesn't bode well for the future. And of course there are islands in the Pacific that are already underwater. The Maldives have got a big problem. So there's definite evidence of sea level rising, and it's going to increase geometrically unless we really change our lifestyles in the next 5 or 10 years, because the next 5...
Absolutely, some good advice there. That was John Caveman Gray, also known as Ling Yai, or a big monkey.